Welcome everyone. In this video we will discuss an overview of Scrum. So we will start by a definition. What's Scrum? According to the Scrum Guide, which is written by the creators of Scrum, Scrum is a framework for developing, delivering, and sustaining complex projects. It is a relatively simple framework for dealing with complex and predictable projects. By framework, we mean that Scrum contains basic structures and ideas for completing a project. So the basic ideas of Scrum can be customized to suit your specific project. This is in contrast to a rigid methodology in which every project is executed in the same way. A key component of Scrum and Agile in general is continuous learning. And what do we mean by continuous learning? Scrum projects start with a vision. This is the initial desired end result of the project. The stronger the vision at the start of the project, the better. The product is then worked on an iteration at a time. After the first iteration, we have some of the features of the product. Even though the product only has a few features, it can be considered usable with respect to those features. That product should have value and potentially can be given to the customer. After the first iteration, notice that our vision has slightly changed. This is because we have learned from implementing the first product features and adapted our vision accordingly. After our second iteration, the product contains the work of the first iteration as well as the work of the second iteration. It now has more features that the customer will value. Because of continuous feedback, we may have improved some of the features from the first iteration. Notice that our vision has again been adapted. After the third iteration, our product is closer to our vision, but our vision has again changed slightly. You can see that we are building the project incrementally, because we are building it piece by piece. We are building it iteratively, because the product gets improved as we are learning along the way. That is why Scrum is both an incremental and iterative approach to building projects. This process of building and improving parts of the product continues indefinitely, allowing the product to stay relevant in a changing marketplace. At the end of every iteration, a product called an increment is ready. Here we see that 3 iterations have created 3 increments of the product. So, what's an increment? An increment is a usable product that may be given to the customer. The organization always has the option to release the increment. Each increment must meet the organization's agreed upon definition of done. This includes quality and security standards. Each increment contains the work of the current iteration as well as the work of all prior iterations. In other words, an increment is the complete state of the product after an iteration. In Scrum, iterations are called sprints. A sprint is a time-boxed period used to work on an increment. This time period of a sprint is fixed. Sprints usually have a duration of 1 to 4 weeks, with 2-week sprints being typical. Shorter sprints create an opportunity for more adaptation. Longer sprints allow for more work to be done in a single increment. It's up to each team to decide on the appropriate sprint length. There are 3 main parts of the Scrum framework. Artifacts are tools that allow for transparency of the project. They allow anyone with access to them to see the current state of the project. The second part of the Scrum framework are the roles related to Scrum. And the third part of the Scrum framework are the events related to Scrum. These are also called ceremonies or meetings. Next, we will discuss Scrum artifacts. A main purpose of the artifacts is to provide project transparency. Anyone with proper access can use the artifacts to see the current states of the project, including the project's history and future plans. This enables the team to have a shared understanding of the project so that everybody is on the same page. The Scrum artifacts are used to enable inspection and adaptation both inside and outside of Scrum meetings. So let's start with the first artifact. A product backlog is an ordered, ever-changing to-do list for the project. It contains issues that are not yet part of any sprint. You might also hear them referred to as stories. Constant feedback means that the product backlog is always changing. When you first add issues to a Scrum project, they are automatically placed in your product backlog. The product backlog can include issues that represent features, improvements, bug fixes, or any other type of issue that you would like. The product backlog is ordered. Issues near the top of the backlog are the closest to being worked on, so they usually have more details than the lower items. Modifying the product backlog is called product backlog refinement. According to the Scrum Guide, each Scrum team decides how to do product refinement, but it should consume no more than 10% of the development team's time. When you are ready to plan a sprint, the list of issues to be completed during the sprint is called the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog includes a plan on how to accomplish the work of the issues. This means that before starting the actual sprint, more details are added to the issues in the sprint backlog. Those details describe how the work on the issues will be done. As part of planning for sprint, it is common to estimate how much work an issue will take. Story points are the most common estimation statistic. Story points are a relative measure of the amount of work required to complete an issue. For example, an issue that is assigned 2 story points is assumed to take about twice as long to complete as an issue that is assigned 1 story point. Story points are used to help the team decide how many issues can be completed in a sprint. The sprint goal represents the objective of the sprint's increment. The sprint goal is reached by completing the issues in the sprint backlog. A Scrum rule is that the sprint goal does not change during the sprint. The sprint is considered a success if the sprint goal is reached. There are 2 major reasons to have a sprint goal. The first is that it provides a coherence to the product increment. This means that the features are related so that the product increment is valuable rather than building a collection of unrelated features. This also results in the Scrum team working together to achieve the sprint goal. The second reason is that it enables flexibility with the sprint backlog. Projects are complex, and even though the sprint duration is relatively short, the team cannot predict the future and will learn and adjust during the sprint. There has to be flexibility somewhere. The sprint goal remains fixed during the sprint, but the issues that achieve the sprint goal can be modified as long as quality is not decreased. This means that there is flexibility in the makeup of the sprint backlog as the sprint is worked on. The sprint goal provides guidance for decisions as the team makes adjustments. And now let's discuss the Burndown chart. A Burndown chart shows the progress that the team makes during a sprint. A sprint backlog starts with a certain number of issues, each with an associated number of story points or other estimation statistic. The total number of starting points is shown on the left of the chart. This is the number of story points that the development team estimated that it would complete in the sprint. On the last day of the sprint, the guideline reached 0 story points. This means that the work of the sprint should be finished on the last day. And here also we have the velocity chart, which represents the rate at which the team accomplishes the work. Usually it is the number of story points completed per sprint. Some teams use an estimation statistics other than story points. So in that case, velocity measures some other units completed per sprint. You can see the team's velocity of a single sprint by looking at the Burndown chart. The velocity chart shows the estimated and actual velocity of the team over time. In this example, prior to the first sprint, the team estimated what it would complete 4 story points, shown with a blue bar. It actually completed those 2.5 story points as shown by the red bar. The velocity of the team for sprint 1 was 2.5 story points. The velocity chart shows a quick snapshot of the changes in the team's productivity over time. As the team improves, its velocity generally improves, so velocity charts usually trend upward. Now let's discuss Scrum roles. A Scrum team is made up of 3 roles: a Scrum Master, a Product Owner, and the development team. The Scrum team is made up of a cross-functional team members, allowing it to complete stories within the team. It is flexible and adaptable with members willing to help out where needed and continuously learning new things. It is self-organizing. The team is responsible for deciding how to organize and do its work. Stakeholders are not members of the Scrum team, but are interested in the success of the project. There are internal stakeholders such as company managers, executives, or other Scrum teams that rely on the work of the Scrum team. There are also stakeholders that are external to the organization, such as customers, partners, and investors. Now let's discuss the first role, the product owner. The product owner is the member of the Scrum team who is responsible for communicating the product vision. The stakeholders and the Scrum team need to have an understanding of the product vision in order to work effectively. The product owner is also responsible for maximizing the value of each increment. Each feature that the development team works on should be of high value. The product owner is responsible for the product backlog. Others may help with the product backlog, but the product owner is responsible for it. And stakeholders primarily interact with the product owner. The product owner represents the stakeholders when they are not part of the discussion, such as during Scrum team meetings. The product owner is accountable to the stakeholders for the success of the project. And now let's talk about the Scrum Master. He is the member of the Scrum team who is primarily responsible for promoting and supporting Scrum for Scrum team members as well as stakeholders. It is up to the Scrum Master to ensure that everyone understands how and why things are done in a certain way. The Scrum Master is also responsible for the day-to-day effectiveness of the Scrum team. This includes ensuring that the team is reaching its goals and continuously improving. The Scrum Master is responsible for protecting the focus of the team. This may mean helping to remove bottlenecks or ensuring that those outside are interacting with the team in helpful ways. The Scrum Master is also responsible for increasing the transparency of the project. There should be no surprises about the current status of the project. The Scrum Master's tasks vary by project and from day to day. Typical tasks include coaching the Scrum team and stakeholders on Scrum and Agile, helping to remove blocking issues, facilitating Scrum events, configuring Scrum artifacts, and monitoring sprint progress. This distinction of the product owner and Scrum Master roles should now be pretty clear. The product owner is responsible for the value of the product. The Scrum Master is primarily responsible for the effectiveness of the team. You can think of this both as a divide and conquer approach because the work of the roles is so different. The separate roles lead to greater team success and sustainability. Next, we will discuss the last role, which is the development team. The development team is a cross-functional adaptive team that does the work of the project. Responsibilities of the development team include estimating issues. This is usually done using story points, but other estimation methods can be used. Deciding on how much work can be done in the sprint, only the development team can decide how much work to take out. It is assumed that the development team is in the best position to forecast how much work the issues take. And also deciding how to organize to do the work of the team. This is because the team is an empowered, self-organizing team. Creating the increment of each sprint, and finally, the development team are the only member allowed to modify the sprint backlog during the sprint. This is sometimes necessary as the team learns and adjusts as it is building. The Scrum Guide recommends having from 3 to 9 members of the development team. Jeff Bezos at Amazon refers to 2 pizza teams, meaning 2 pizzas should be able to feed the entire team. To scale Scrum to more than 9 people, it is usually better to create multiple teams. So next we will discuss Scrum events. A sprint contains 4 types of events. You may also hear events referred to as ceremonies or simply meetings. The events are the sprint planning meeting, the daily stand-ups, the sprint review, and the sprint retrospective. These events are designed to maximize the opportunities for feedback and continuous learning, and are the key part of achieving agility. In between these meetings is where the work of the issues of the sprint is completed. We will discuss each of these meetings separately. All of the Scrum meetings have some common characteristics. The meetings have a fixed maximum time limit and no minimum time limit. Meetings can never go over their allotted time, but they can be ended early if the purpose of the meeting is achieved. The meetings are primarily to plan, inspect, and adapt. In Agile projects, the planning is distributed throughout the project rather than the mostly upfront planning of waterfall projects. This is the key part of increasing transparency and continuous improvement. The meetings are primarily about the team collaborating, not about updating status. The work is visualized, so you don't need a meeting to see the status. It is the responsibility of every team member to ensure that meetings have value and to help modify them to increase their value if necessary. So now let's start with the first event, which is the sprint planning. The sprint planning meeting is held at the start of the sprint. The entire Scrum team attends the meeting. The duration of the meeting is typically 4 hours for a 2-week sprint. If your sprints are 4 weeks long, you can expect this meeting to be twice as long. The purpose of the meeting is to plan the work of the sprint. Before the meeting, the product owner usually has a proposed sprint goal and a minimum set of issues that accomplish the goal. During the meeting, the team usually discusses the sprint goal, modifies the sprint backlog, places story point estimates on issues, and adds details to the issues to better describe the specific work to be done. The development team is responsible for estimating the story points for the work and deciding on how much work can be done during the sprint. This is an example of an empowered team rather than a command and control based team. The purpose of this meeting has been met when there is an agreed upon sprint goal and sprint backlog. The sprint backlog contains the issues that the development team has agreed to complete during the sprint, as well as a plan for completing that work. Now we will talk about the daily stand-up meeting. It is also called the daily Scrum. It is a planning meeting that occurs every day, and the participants usually stand as a reminder that it's a short meeting. The meeting usually takes place in the same location at the same time every day. The development team are the primary attendees for the daily stand-up. Others may attend the meetings but are usually asked to listen only. The meeting usually lasts 15 minutes or less. The purpose of the meeting is to inspect recent progress toward the sprint goal, plan the day's work, and identify any impediments to the team. The team usually makes plans to resolve the impediments, but the discussion often moves to after the meeting. The output of the meeting is the plan for the day. It's important that the daily stand-up is a collaborative meeting and not simply a status update. The team collaborates to make the best decisions for the day given the latest information. They usually decide on who will work on specific issues to plan slightly changes after every daily stand-up. This is continuous improvement. And after, we will discuss the next event, which is the sprint review, which is a meeting that occurs near the end of the sprint. It is an informal meeting that includes the Scrum team and interested stakeholders. It is typically a 2-hour meeting for the 2-week sprints. The purpose of the meeting is to inspect the increment that was just created in the sprint and to collaboratively update the product backlog. This is a meeting with a lot of feedback on the project and includes a brainstorming session to help decide what to do next. The output of the meeting is a first pass at the next sprint's backlog. And now let's discuss the last event of the sprint, which is the sprint retrospective. The Scrum team attends the retrospective. The meeting typically takes 90 minutes for a 2-week sprint. The purpose of the meeting is for the team to inspect itself, including its processes, tools, and team interaction. The retrospective is a positive meeting containing constructive feedback. Everyone should always remember that they are part of a team. The Scrum Master usually helps make sure that this is a positive meeting. The team usually discusses what they should keep doing, what they should stop doing, and what they should start doing. The meeting is about continuously improving the team. The output of the meeting is to add one or more improvement-related issues to the next sprint's backlog. It's important that the team spend some of its time on these issues, rather than exclusively building the product. So here is a review of what we have discussed in this video. Scrum is an agile framework. An increment is a potentially shippable portion of the project that meets the definition of done. A sprint is a time-boxed period in which the increment is created. Scrum artifacts provide project transparency, enable shared understanding, and enable inspection and adaptation. Scrum roles include the Scrum Master, the product owner, and the development team members, and also stakeholders. Scrum meetings include the sprint planning meeting, daily stand-ups, the sprint review, and the sprint retrospective. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.